Hello everyone, welcome to another video. So I just wanted to say, first of all, I know I've been really busy, so unfortunately I have not made a video in quite a long time, but there's some good news on that, which is mostly that now I graduated college and I'm living in my own place now. I moved into a new apartment, so that makes it so that will probably have more opportunities to be recording in the future, so that's a good thing. So I hope to really bring the channel back and make more videos. I have not forgotten about you guys. You can be sure of that. I have some ideas in the making for sure for the future. And really, I want to thank you guys so much for your support. I couldn't have done it without you. Getting to 1,000 subscribers, it's a really big milestone. Just over 1,000. I know we're at like 1,020 now, around at the time of this recording. So hopefully, hope to see that number just keep going up, up, and up. And I can't do it without you guys. So if you're new here, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. All right, thank you, and let's get into the video. So first of all, I just want to apologize about the quality of this video. I mean, I'm just talking about the video and audio quality specifically because normally we have a higher standard of audio and video quality here on this channel, but at this particular time, I don't have access to my tripod or to a better camera since I just moved out, or to a better microphone. So at this moment, that's why I'm recording on my Acer Nitro 5 laptop, which doesn't have the best camera or microphone. I tried to do the best with the tools that I have available. It's also kind of a gloomy day, so that's why the video doesn't look as good as it could. But anyway, that won't stop me from putting out another video. So recently I changed my carrier, my phone, and my phone number. Now, this is the new phone I've got. The Celero 3 5G. We're going to talk about this bad boy a lot more in a minute. I just realized when I made this switch that I'm just so fed up with Apple. Didn't want to pay for their overpriced phones, another thing, and I just figured now's the perfect time to switch to Android. So that's why I did it. And honestly, I'm so glad that I made the switch, and I'm going to tell you guys why throughout the course of this video. So this is of course a review of the Celero phone, but it's also a review of just my experience switching from Apple to Android in general, and also switching carriers from AT&T to Boost Mobile as well. So just to start off, I just want to talk for a moment about the carrier switch. Let me just say, I switched to Boost, and Boost gets a bad rap because it's cheaper or whatever, but let me just say I noticed that it works just as well, and I would say it actually works better than AT&T. The reason being that, like, at least where I work right now, I don't, for some reason, when I was having AT&T, I was not getting service in the building where I work at all. It was the only weird thing with AT&T. Now that I have Boost, I do get service in that building. So that's the only difference I've noticed, and it's a positive one in favor of Boost. So I think, and honestly, for all the bad rap Boost gets, it's perfectly fine. And the reason I mention that is because that really sums up a lot about the point that I really want to make in this video. The reason being that the difference between Boost as like the budget phone carrier and AT&T as the more like mainstream, supposedly better one, really just it mirrors the difference between a phone like a budget Android phone like the Celero in question that I switched to, and Apple phones. So I'm going to talk more about this difference, specifically what I mean by that, toward the end of the video. So as I've mentioned, the phone that I was switching from was the iPhone 13, specifically this one here. And the phone that I'm switching to is the Celero 3 5G. Let's talk a little bit more about this guy right now. So I paid $100 for this phone, just paid it off right up front from Boost. I paid it off just $100. Now it's mine to use with the service. That was not including the activation fee or the first month of service, but the phone itself, they sold to me for 100 US dollars. And the price of this phone actually ranges. I think it's an entry level phone like that. It just it depends on where you get it, what carrier, or if you get it unlocked. The prices I found online ranged between around 50 US dollars to around 160 US dollars. So it really depends, and it also might depend based on country. I don't have a lot of information about other countries, but either way, whatever you pay for this, as long as it's not something absurd, even if you pay 160 US dollars for this, I think that that is an amazing deal compared to other things you could be buying, and I'm going to go into why that is. So first of all, let's just talk about this display. I mean, it might not be anything fancy, special advertised, but at the end of the day, I think it's actually fantastic because just consider for a moment even one thing, which is like the size of the display. I mean, you have the iPhone, which is actually smaller. Once I had to use this briefly after using the Celero, I honestly realized like that this phone is just the screen is not that big, and it's nicer to have a bigger screen. And who's going to say no to a bigger screen when it's also so cheap? It's so cheap. It has a nice big screen that works really well and works really smoothly. I have no complaints. In fact, the screen is like really nice. Really, really nice. And it's on an $100 phone. I mean, I didn't even expect it to have a nice screen. That's why I was shocked by how good it was. I mostly just bought this phone because I was on a budget, but I couldn't believe how good the screen was after all. I mean, for the price. So the screen gets like a 10 out of 10. I like it more than the iPhone screen, honestly. Just like I said, there's no issues with the boost carrier performance. I mean, there are no issues with phone calls or text or data. There's also no issues with the performance of the phone. It works perfectly fine. I mean, that might not hold up, like the processor might show its age if you start doing like gaming on this phone, but who really does like serious gaming on your phone? I mean, even if you do, like, there's just not a lot of people who do it, and even if you do, it's not a priority. You probably have gaming on other systems as well. I mean, that might show its weakness a little bit there, but for just day-to-day tasks that you use your phone for, I did not notice any problem whatsoever with performance. It performs perfectly fine with the processor that it has. Now, what I really love about Android is the amount of customization that is possible. I mean, like, for example, if you want to achieve the same level of customization on an Apple phone, then it's necessary to jailbreak it. I mean, you can do that, but it's like this one just comes already. There's no need to do that, and it's basically, yeah, it's like it is to. I mean, the difference between Android and iPhone is like the difference between Linux and Mac OS. I mean, like if you want to be able to have options to be able to do whatever you want on your device because it's your device and not have some company limiting what you can do because they don't want you to do things or they want to mess with you, then I mean, Android is the way to go. I just love the amount of customization. And you can also do things like you can like spoof your location, for instance. That's just an example of all the different things you can do that you can just do whatever like you can do whatever you want. It's your phone that you can actually use to the maximum of its abilities. There's not like restrictions that are put the way that Apple products have those restrictions, even though their phones cost so much more money. Okay, so I do have to talk about the downsides of this phone. The downsides are things like microphone, speakers, camera, and lack of biometric features. So first of all, so microphone and speakers, they're a little bit worse than on an iPhone, a little bit. But so I don't think it's really a big deal. I mean, it depends on like, I don't think a lot of people use their speakers for listening to music, but if you do that a lot without you listen to music on your device's speakers rather than with an external speaker or with headphones, then it might matter. But anyway, the speaker quality, I would say, is still decent. It's just a little bit worse. Same with the microphone. But then when it comes to camera, I have to admit that's probably the biggest difference of all. Like, the camera is very poor compared to iPhone. But that's what I would expect on such a cheap phone. But the thing is, I think it's completely like permissible at this price point to have a camera that's not great. I mean, you can take pictures, it's just the camera quality is not any good at all. Anyway, it depends on how much you care about that because I think it's ridiculous to pay, several times the price of the phone just to have a better camera. Then the other noticeable missing thing is biometric features. There is no fingerprint reader and there is no Face ID or, iris scanner or anything like that. And you might say, hey, these are features that have been around for years, but they don't have them. Yeah, but those features cost a lot of money. And I just think they're a waste of money, personally. Yes, it's cool or whatever, but at the end of the day, you don't need it. Lately, what I've been doing, I live alone now, is I don't even have a password on my phone. Because I just figure, why? Like, I mean, if somebody's going to steal my phone, I probably have bigger issues than, like, whatever, them getting in. They could get in anyway if they know what they're doing. Let's put it that way. So, honestly, it's just, it's not worth it. I think the biometric features are a waste of money. Yes, it's a cool feature to have Face ID, but it's so expensive and it's completely not worth the money, in my opinion. So I'm fine with not having biometric features. I just swipe to unlock, no password, no nothing. So that's the way I like to do it. I mean, if you care a lot about that, that might influence your decision, but I wouldn't recommend using that as a priority, whether or not a phone has good biometric features. So now I want to just talk about the reason why people choose an iPhone over an Android. So I think the reasons are mainly these three. Um, the brand, the Apple brand that the company created. Then secondly, we have the bells and whistles, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then thirdly, we have the first party features. Okay, so I'm going to go into each of those. So first of all, the brand. So Apple has like created this iconic brand where it's like almost more like a fashion product than it is like a piece of technology that is actually intended to be the best as it possibly can be. It's a lot about looks. The phone is sleek, recognizable, and everybody has it. And if you have an iPhone or Apple products, then you're part of the club, and it's just like a status thing. That's what I refer to when I say the Apple brand. I think a lot of it is you're just paying for status. Same, for example, with AirPods. That's another really good example because you can compare how some of you are probably aware there's like Bluetooth earbuds on the market that are much better actually than AirPods and cost much less. But why do AirPods still get away with selling for so much? Because of the fashion statement. I mean, it's just it's like, you're part of the club if you have the AirPods and they're like cool or whatever. So that's why people buy them. I didn't want to subscribe to that anymore. And then secondly, we have the bells and whistles, which is things like Face ID, which is impressive. And it is actually a pretty neat piece of technology. It is an impressive piece of technology, something like Face ID for sure. But the problem with it is that it's very expensive and it's not worth the money when you could just like, why do you need to open your phone with your face? You would just not have a password if you live alone, probably. Or if you do have a password, I mean, some people might want to for security reasons, I understand. You just type it in every time. I mean, it's like, it's usually second nature or, there's cheaper Android phones that have a fingerprint sensor if you want, but I just think it's not worth it. And there's also other bells and whistles, things like different options for the camera, specialized, yeah, improved camera software, things like that, especially if you have an iPhone Pro. But then finally, the first party features. That I think is actually the most justifiable of these three reasons to buy an Apple product because the first party ecosystem that Apple creates is kind of unique. The way that they have like, seamless integration between your Apple Watch, your iPhone, and your laptop. All of those devices just have seamless integration. I mean, if you have, like, that's if you have new ones because you basically have to have a relatively recent version of all of those devices for them to seamlessly integrate like that. So it doesn't always work 100%, especially if you have a much older device, or if you just have one of the devices, then what are you going to integrate with? Nothing. So it forces you to buy multiple in order to do that. But it does provide an experience that I see why like somebody would want it. It is quite a they do that quite well, I must admit. The first party features, I mean things like, you get a text on all three devices at one time. You can answer one on one and the messages on all of them immediately, and things like that, switching between music seamlessly between them, between Safari tabs. I mean, it is kind of impressive, and just when it works well, which, I mean, if you have the newest devices, you could have a good experience with that for sure. Um, you know, like for example, if you have an Android phone, you're not going to have as easy of a time just seamlessly texting from other devices that are not your phone. But of course, the way that the first party features work is they force you to have multiple of the device from the same company. If you have an iPhone, you can only text on your laptop if you have a MacBook, of course. So then you have to buy more than one of the devices and the cost just goes out the window. So personally, I wouldn't do that, but I see why, especially if you have deep pockets, someone might be attracted to the first party feature, especially if you're not somebody who tinkers a lot and is willing to give up the customization that is offered by Android. So another issue that I have with iPhone is that they always break. Like for example, this iPhone 13 that I have, it actually the charging port stopped working while I was in Europe this summer. So I was stuck without any working phone, and it was kind of a nightmare for a while. Eventually, I realized, oh yes, I can just charge it using a wireless charger. So now I've had to ever since that happened, I've had to always use the wireless charger to charge it, never the cable one, which means you can't really borrow people's chargers. Anyway, the point is, Apple is always screwing with you, making the stuff break, so you buy a new one. I've talked about this before on my channel. I especially see that with laptops like my MacBook that stopped working before like the keyboard and trackpad stopped working completely. The only way I could operate it would be with an external mouse and keyboard. Who wants to do that on a laptop? And so the only way that I could fix that was I installed Linux, and then suddenly the problem went away immediately. Why? Because Apple was doing it with their software, obviously. I also tried installing Windows for briefly, and that also fixed the problem. So that literally proves that the problem was the software, that Apple's software was creating that problem, that it wasn't a hardware issue. So that's proof that Apple actually is purposely messes with your electronics, so you buy a new one once it's old. The laptop that I'm talking about is from 2015, case in point. Also, now that laptop with Linux works perfectly fine. So yeah, I'm guessing that if you're watching this, like a lot of you guys who watch the channel are probably tinkerers. If you're a tinkerer, if you like to tinker with your electronic devices, and like change the settings to suit you the best, I think Android offers a lot more customizability that you will really appreciate, especially once you start using it, that you don't have all these stupid like blocks that, oh no, you can't do this sort of thing that Apple does. And a lot of things like that. Like even just to give the most basic example, when you set alarms, Apple doesn't let you schedule alarms for different weekdays. Whereas this Celero phone that costs $100 does allow me to do that. So, I mean, it's very convenient. Just things like that. It's like, why the heck doesn't Apple implement that in their software? If their software is supposedly so good, just like implement that already. And also scheduling text messages. You can't do that on Apple, but you can do that on Android. I absolutely recommend this phone. I think the bang for your buck of this Celero is absolutely insane. Like you really can't beat that. $100. If you, especially if your phone, like say you have your phone and then it like breaks or you lose it or something and you need to get a new smartphone short notice, buy one of these, please. It's $100. It will suit all your purposes just fine and it's $100. Please do yourself a favor, and if you have an emergency situation and you don't have a lot of money, buy one of these or something similar, of course. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. If you have any particular recommendations for future videos, please go ahead and leave it in the comments section. Also, you will find a link to my Discord server in the description, so please go ahead and join that as well if you're a fan of this channel. So that's all I have for you guys today. Have a great day, and I hope to see you all in the next one.